Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends. And today we are both on Facebook and YouTube. Things should be working correctly. I am so excited about that. And I have a wonderful panel. I have the wonderful Asma Tariq who keeps me on Facebook and my technology doing well. I have Mary Ellis Arthur, who is a dreamer in my mind and a storytelling activist, and we're going to be hearing from her. And of course, you know Jeff Pulver and Cameron Risby, who have been here on Thursdays for most of the time. We're going to lose Cameron for a short while, but he will be back. And today we are talking about thoughts and whether our thoughts create our world or whether we create our world using our thoughts. And I want to start with Cameron. Hi, Cameron.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for throwing me in the deep end. And when we speak about thoughts, it reminds me of consciousness and being conscious of what is around us and what is within us is quite a challenge at times, because I feel that we are often driven more by our subconscious programming that we've acquired from childhood without us knowing, subliminally and otherwise. And as a result, what tends to happen is that we evolve, we grow into seeing things in a particular way. And as a result, our worldview is very colored by our past inputs and experiences and environmental impacts. So, your question, Carla, is do we create the world or does the world create our thoughts? And I feel that it is very much us being affected by the world if we are not very self-assured and clear in terms of what reality is. Because when we speak of the world, we are speaking of reality. And reality is a very subjective phenomena. And Mary Alice's reality, Asma's reality, and indeed Jess and Carla, yours would be very different. And it is when we have conversations that we try to enter the world of the other and see things from his or her perspective and enrich ourselves in the process. So I have a feeling that it's an interplay, although I must say that when we talk of visioning, and having a view of the future, for instance, or even defining your current state, it is very much for someone who is empowered, who's conscious, who's aware. It is what you create around you. And I have a feeling that that is the ideal state that we all need to be in the moment and to be able to view things in a very balanced way, because when there are threats, there are opportunities to be able to see both and not be hijacked by either of these imposters. I think it's very important also. So yes, I think we create, our thoughts create the world in which we live if we are not aware. And if we do become aware, certainly we create the world we want to be in. And I live in a beautiful world, I can assure you, even though I'm in Pakistan, next to Afghanistan and China and India and all of the trouble spots, Iran. But I find myself in a beautiful place with a lot of dynamics. And in a sense, it's exciting.
Cameron, how do you create your thoughts? Because we know that thoughts can go in a positive or negative direction. And depending on how we create them, that's where they go. There's a very well-known person who had said thoughts the thoughts we have in our mind can either be, we can either get 90% positive thoughts. 9 out of 10 people could tell you how wonderful you are and how wonderful you did a project. And one person will say, it is absolutely crazy. What are you talking about? And our thoughts gravitate to the negative.
Yeah.
How do
So,
you change that?
very quickly, Carla, can I just shed some light on this and give some space to Jeff and Mary Alice and Asma? Because I'm sure they're brimming and they're wanting to say something on this. Dr. Wayne Dyer, God bless his soul, said some brilliant things. And the one that has stuck with me is this. We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Now, if I think my thoughts are me, then I'm in trouble. But if the thoughts are in my control, and this is when you were talking about creating thoughts, you can only create thoughts if you are in control of your mind. And you can only be in control of your mind if spirit has the ascendance. And I, as a spiritual being, can utilize the brain power to serve the agenda, the purpose that I have. Now, if I do not see myself as a spiritual being, then I'm a victim of my mind, and my mind is driven by the five senses, and there are lots of inputs coming left, right, and center, which I'm unable to filter sometimes, which can become toxic and cause mental conditions which are not very helpful. So in a sense, I feel that we need to conclude our lives by saying that I control my mind and I'm a spiritual being. And my mind is a resource that I need to deploy in a way that is appropriate to any given situation.
Thank you, Cameron. Mary Alice, what do you think?
I read somewhere that we have 60,000 thoughts a day. And I realized, wow, that's kind of like being on the bullet train in Japan and not realizing you're on the bullet train until you get to the next station and you go, oh my goodness, how did I get here? So there's something about the power of reflection and the quieting the mind that is really important, to just actually become aware of what thought train is attempting to barrel through the station, and how do I actually become awake to it. I think, Kamran, what you're talking about is when you realize you're a spiritual being having a human experience, you become awake to something in a new way. So it's possible to move through life like a sleepwalker and have your thoughts push you in this direction and that direction, and become the victim of something or the effect of something rather than the cause of something. And I think what you're talking about is, how do you wake up and become the cause of your life rather than the effect of it? So that's kind of sitting with me. And what popped into my mind as I was listening to you was a cartoon, a Buddhist cartoon I'd seen. And in this cartoon, there's the elephant, the monkey, and the monk. And when the cartoon starts, the monkey is kind of jumping all over the place, leading everybody else astray. And then eventually, and I think the monkey is supposed to be the mind, the elephant is the body, and the monk is the spirit. And so this cartoon goes on having these animals and people play with each other till finally it's the monk who's leading the elephant, where the monkey is sitting on the back of the elephant very quietly. And that, that is kind of a nice little encapsulation of what spiritual practice should actually help you to do, to put your purpose, your higher purpose at the front of the line, and have the mind, the mind is a fantastic servant, but it's a terrible master. And I know that for myself, because here I have been in the pandemic. I'm in Columbus, Ohio, and I live alone. So I've been in my little room alone since January the 29th, 2020. I've only been out of town 3 times since that time. My suitcase and I have had a terrible estrangement. And the world is going on. And so I noticed that if I feel like I'm in a spin, it's not anybody else who's doing that to me. It's me doing that to me. And I can also feel the greater collective. So I know that some of that spin is coming through the fear, through the thoughts. I can feel it. I can feel it through my email inbox. I can feel it through the internet. I can feel it in people I'm talking to. And if you're a human being who is at all empathetic and tuned into feeling, it's easy to be persuaded in your thoughts to go a certain way. So there's an interesting thing about how do you create, like any good cell, a cell has a permeable boundary, but it has to have a boundary. Otherwise, it would just be goop, right? So where is my boundary around how I want to work with my thoughts, how I want to be with those, how I recognize what's happening around me and whether I choose to be part of it or not? How do I balance those things? That's why being in practice of some kind is really helpful. And I'm interested to hear from you all here what your practice is. That might be some help to people who are listening to go, okay, what's my practice? And of course, if you're a practitioner, you need to stay in practice. It's not about you ever have succeeded. It's about continuing to keep the beginner's mind and keep practicing. So I'm just intrigued to hear from all of you about your practices around how you deal with the monkey mind and with your thoughts.
Personally, I think part of it is accepting that the mind is like a monkey and it's constantly jumping. And because it's constantly jumping, it's our choice to pick the thoughts that we want to hang on to. We could hang on to saying, oh, Jeff likes me. Or we could say, oh, he said that he doesn't want to talk to me ever again. And if you switch back to Jeff wants to talk to me, you feel more positive. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Jeff to answer the question.
Well, thank you. And it's always a pleasure and honor to be here. To get to the question, I think the reset for me is understanding that all we ever have is the now, the moment we have. And that together, at least individually, I believe our past, our present, and our future is with us at any time, that we are our own universe. And we carry that with us. And that when we travel with all of this together. And at the core, we are but energy. And we have containers which represent us here. Sometimes we see each other's containers, and other times we actually can connect through vibration and frequency and actually not see what others may see as a container. Perhaps planetary folks from Earth might see the containers, but if you're actually not from here, and perhaps you even know what star system you're from, or perhaps you from star systems that haven't been discovered yet, you'd understand that your energy is not necessarily in sync with what happens here, but you just happen to be visiting. So in terms of thoughts, ultimately, we may have been created, but at the same time, we are all creators. And I believe that from our ability to create, we can create anything we want to. We can create good and bad, but that's relative to the universe I'm from. What may be positive for you, I might have a really not expected, not necessarily positive reaction to it. If there's a polarity, there's with magnetism, even here on Earth, you have the North Pole and the South Pole, and there's a need to have opposites. There's a need to create gravitation. There's a need not only just for balance, but for how energy works, how it's transmuted, how it transitions, and how it empowers. So in terms of who is in control, that is something of divinity to decide, really, not necessarily of us. If you're asking a planetary question about control or thoughts, I would like to believe anyway that the source messages that I get were meant to be shared, and they're being shared right now. And that perhaps at times we're just conduits for the energy to be displaced from one place to the other, and we're here. So what's original? Maybe nothing. Maybe it's everything. It really depends upon from what perspective you take, and what the intentions are and what the purpose is of it. So at the core side of it, as we travel through time and space, there's messages that are accumulated, some that we speak of, some that we receive. And there's also that readiness to receive messages, that if you happen to be interacting with others, but you're not ready to necessarily understand what's being said, that's a totally different context. So, from the framework of the questions, I do believe that we are created from other people's thoughts as much as we create the reality around us based on how we think, how we purpose. If the container that you're in right now is creating original thoughts, then that is the reality you're living in, or at least the one that you perceive. But the way you see yourself is not necessarily the way other entities see you, energetically or spiritually or otherwise. And so there's multi dimensions to this. This is not a two-dimensional experience nor a three. This is a multi-dimensional experience, and and we're traveling through space and time together. So there are thoughts, there are actions, there are opportunities, and we could choose what frequency and what vibration we want to share and what channels we want to be open for communication on. And through those mechanisms of connecting, sure, we can create original ideas, and we could process others, and we could share opinions, but understand that we're sometimes limited to how we are seen and how we are understood, as much as how much we're able to perceive and what's being understood by us, so that it's not necessarily 100% efficient to communicate verbally. Sometimes we need to use other means to share, whether it's color, whether it's feelings. Maybe there's a tactile reason for touch. There's lots of things that are said by not speaking anything, by simply sharing space and time. Sometimes it's all you need in order to connect in the most meaningful, heartfelt way. There are times when people get so busy that they forget about the now. They forget about that moment they're in, and they take themselves out of that moment. And now, where are they? Where have they traveled to? Then how do you come back into that moment? And how do you even communicate the value of the power of now until you're not there anymore? And so there's, we have many messages all the time, many thoughts, some original, some not so much. But again, depending upon who you are or where your energy is from, you may think they're original thoughts, and for you they may be, but they may have been heard before. That's the beauty of the universe, that we're able to recreate as much as create and co-create. And sometimes it's the co-creations of others that create unexpected positive consequences that shift where we're going. But if in fact we represent our past, our present, and our future all together, then there are some really interesting consequences just from that. So it's really, it's not for me to say or even share opinion about thought. Just know that I respect the voices I hear of others. Thank you, Carla.
You're welcome, Jeff. Thank you for your contribution. Asma, what do you think?
Right now, I think so. There are a lot of thoughts are in my mind, so I am in their prison. Yes, we are always, I think thoughts are, and especially being a creator, we are always in the prison of thoughts. We are overthinker somehow, and that affects us a lotly. Your circumstances, your environment definitely affects you, and definitely they affect your thoughts. Somehow they affect you. Whenever someone say me that our environment is not that kind of good, because of that our thoughts are not enough positive, enough good, and we can't do anything. So I just I just read something from, I will definitely share with that. But the thing is that we human alone can't change the things by itself. For that, when we were born, when God created us, with that God also sent a lot of messages. God sent prophets and also a lot of messenger with the message, and that message actually help us to direct our direction. We always need some stuff. We always need some material that help us to direct ourselves. That can be the nature, that can be the environment, that can be some books, that can be some conversation. But we always need some material. We always need some stuff to redirect our thoughts, to redirect our direction. Otherwise, by itself, by ourselves, we can't change. We definitely we affect with the environment. We definitely, and even if we don't affect by the environment, somehow we affect by ourselves. Like I was in some phase, I was very badly entrapped by the self pittiness, like where you feel yourself like where you always feel yourself as a victim and you feel yourself very pity. It's also you are entrapped by your thoughts. But for to come out of that, I need some material that helps me to come out of that. So I always share with whenever someone says, I will share that we always need some stuff that can be anything, because there's someone said that our thoughts are the most powerful thing that we have. And if we want to change our future, for that we need to change our thoughts. And how we can change our thoughts? For that we need to change our mindset. And how you can change your mindset? For that you need to change your environment. You need to change. And now how we can change our environment? For that we need to change our conversation. And now how we can change our conversation? For that we need to learn some new word. We need to learn some new thing. And when that new thing comes in our circle, we definitely our attention will go towards that particular thing, and we will direct our mind, we will direct our thoughts. So for that, like we always, I think we always need somehow after some time, I think it's we humans are always in a challenge to choose the things. We can't always, I don't think so. If someone can, whenever someone say we always be good, I don't think so. I think we live in a gray line. Sometimes we do a lot of good things, sometimes we get entrapped by the negative things. It happens. But we can practice, we can try to be more positive, we can try to be more. For that we always have to be choose. For that we always have to be select the things. We always, and for that we always need some helping material. And I think for that the nature can help us, the books can help us, the people around us can help us, the conversations can help us. We always need some new thing. And I think that's why people say that you need always some new stuff, some new direction, some new books. Some people do yoga, some people do exercise, some people read books, some people do a conversation with babas. It's, here we say babas, but it's the like scholars, spiritual people. So I think, and it's just we always need some support. There's a support system that God has created everywhere, and with that support system, we all grow together. We all, and it's very great. And I think if we know that our thoughts are creating some mess, it's actually a blessing, because there are a lot of people in the world who are unaware with that. Even they are okay with whatever the things are going on. And if you are aware, you want to change the things, you want to improve the things, you are blessed. And this is the first thing you have, just to set, this is the blessing. And with that, after that, we can definitely change the things, we can do the things, but with learning and learning.
Thank you, Asma. And it is true. It is true. It's a thought of learning and unlearning and learning how to express our thoughts in a way that everyone hears it. And to answer a question, the audience is whoever wants to watch. We haven't been actually targeting it because we wanted to open it up for anyone. But at the same time, it seems to be going to a more intellectual type audience who can hear this and think about what we're actually talking about. Mary Alice, when we're talking about thoughts and putting our thoughts out there to create the world we want, what are some of the techniques you use to create your world and make it a more positive world?
I think as I go on just being more aware of the world and myself, I realize it's important how I speak to myself. That little voice inside that's talking to us all the time is often underneath the surface. And if you've grown up in a culture which is very critical, that voice can also be very critical. And I don't know how many people have experienced that, a friend who has become a parent suddenly going, oh my goodness, that was my mother speaking just now. That shocked look on their face. I didn't think I'd ever be my mother, but there she is, you know. So it's interesting to be really aware of what field is underneath the surface. I had some friends who decided to work on some principles in their relationship, which I thought was really interesting. I haven't heard of many people who went into a marriage and decided they would have some principles. And there were 3 of them. The first one was called Pebbles. So you know that when you get a stone in your shoe, you can walk with that stone for a while, but eventually it'll stop you from walking if you don't take care of it. It'll cause enough pain that you'll have to stop. So they decided they would meet regularly, and they named a time where they would discuss their irritations with each other while they were small and before they became a boulder in the middle of the road. You know, I'm going to share my thoughts with you before I feel like I want to assault you because I'm so mad about it. So I thought that was really interesting. Let's deal with our irritations while they're small. While our ideas are small, let's surface them and allow them to move so they can move away. Secondly, they decided that they would be in the relationship 100%, because when you get to a point of argument, sometimes people want to disappear or blame the other person and have them shoulder the load. But they said there might be times when one of us is upset enough that they can't show up 100%. The other one will try to show up 100% so that they can meet each other and they can change the thought pattern. And the third thing they said is we're going to assume lavacious intent. So you know what malicious intent is. Malicious intent is the intention to harm someone else. And they said what we're going to assume when we're in conversation with each other is that the other person is actually acting from lavacious intent. In other words, they intend to demonstrate their love. They may just be doing it in a way that's really hard to hear or thought patterns that are kind of feeling like they're sandpaper instead of a loving embrace. But if we assume lavacious intent, that means that our thoughts are already coming from a different space than if we're assuming the other person is intentionally trying to do us harm and we're in a loving relationship. And I thought that was a really interesting way to decide to put a form on what thoughts might come. And the other thing that's in my mind is right before I came to this conversation, I was talking to a public health doctor who's been working, of course, around the pandemic. And it was really interesting to hear her talking about how people's thoughts are really impacting on how they've decided to respond or react to being in a pandemic and what they think public health is about. And public health has always been the kind of poor cousin of the, you know, if you really want to be a doctor, you should be a surgeon and make a lot of money. And, you know, like your family would be proud of you if you're a surgeon or a doctor. And then the public health people are always those who are actually concerned for the whole. And she said the challenge around our thought patterns is our societies have trained us to be specialists on things, and that means we fall into silos. So then instead of thinking holistically about what's going on, we have forced ourselves to think in kind of a fragmented rather than a fractal type of pattern. So she said when we look at the big SDGs, the environmental goals, then most people tend to go, I'm number 3, I'm number 17, instead of embracing the wholeness of what's there. So nothing actually gets changed. And she said, if you ask a doctor, what's the major cause of death? They will name what they think are the major causes: heart attack, cancer, all these things. The major cause of death on the planet is poverty. But in order to move in that direction, you have to think more holistically than just this little piece of medicine that I'm responsible for. So I think we're in a challenging moment, and maybe a cosmic moment, to riff off what Jeff was saying, for humanity to say, how do I uplift my thought to a perspective of wholeness, moving from what we in storytelling would say from the horror story of we're all separated and we're all in competition with each other and we're all whatever, into the love story. We are all connected. It's all part of oneness. My thought impacts somebody else's thought. And could I uplift my thought to make a good impulse into this world? And I'm responsible for that. So I'm kind of in that, and I realize it in myself too. It's my responsibility, my opportunity to uplift my thought and see what it can create, and to therefore in that upliftment see what is coming to me, and to realize, okay, whatever is being called for is in my current reality right now. So could my responses and my thought about it be co-creative, rather than could I spiral up rather than spiraling down? So, maybe part of being in this world is a grand experiment of, okay, so here's a dose of what you might call reality. What are you going to make out of it? And with that really, and maybe the cosmos is in that curious state of mind going, there they all are. I wonder what they're going to make out of this, because it could be heaven or hell. What are they going to decide? Kind of interesting.
How do you create your way of staying in a positive mindset instead of a negative mindset?
First of all, I'm trying to catch it faster. I have been using tapping recently because I realized I think the body needs to be involved in letting go of old things that I'm not aware of. So I've been using, that you tap on the different meridian points, and that actually has allowed my body to relax and release some things. I'm attempting to also I'm practicing becoming more aware, focusing more on what I wish to happen, being in gratitude. I think that gratitude, joy, delight, these are audacious stances right now on the planet. Because it would be easy to be in fear. It would be easy to fall into competition, but it's audacious to say, no, and joy isn't that happy thing. It's that kind of bubbling wellspring that is the essential part of the spirit. Just rejoicing in being. So that, and also becoming more attentive to how do I balance the doing that I need to be in my life with the being that's actually called for. That's actually my opportunity to express. So I'm deep in practice at the moment.
And that's the point. I think the whole world is deep in practice, and yet they don't know where to begin that practice. And I think that creates many of the issues in the world. Jeff, you look like you want to say something.
Well, yeah, there were moments I wanted to say a lot. I just processing what's being shared, and contextually, it's really interesting. There are many levels that you could take the conversation, high and low, not in terms of value, but in terms of where you want to set the energy, the vibe, the frequency that could be connecting on, and whether we bring it inside ourselves or outside ourselves. I spend some of my time helping other people hear themselves and connect to source, and to reset, and to basically realize they are made up of cosmic dust, and to look outside to the galaxies around them to feel that they're not alone, but they are just dust. And that sometimes the biggest challenges one has, while they're not important, of course they're very important to them, but when you look at the realm of everything else around us, it's maybe not as important as we thought. And so perspective helps in processing priorities. And at the end of the day, it's also respect, being able to understand that it's us, but there's everyone else too. And to the extent that we're entities here, and we're seen here, that balance between wanting to give, someone else's willingness to receive, and the ability for us to practice self-love, which is not selfish love, it's just self-love. It's being able to understand that there are moments when we need to say no matter what is being asked of us. Because if we are not serving ourselves, we are not able to serve anybody else at the highest level, that we have to. It's not a question of want to, but we must serve ourselves. And it's not selfishness. Now, it may take a lifetime for certain people to understand that all they wanted to do was give and share their love and be of service to others. But if they were not taking care of themselves along the way and doing the teeny little things, the smallest of the smallest things that sometimes matter the most, that they were not optimizing their chance while they were here on earth. And perhaps they go through this again someplace else to better appreciate the balance, that we could be all in and being helpful and being mindful and caring. But at the same time, we have to be all in for ourselves too, without the guilt-free love, being able to say, I did this because I wanted to, and I'm fully aware of the impact, and I would do it again. And that allows me to have the energy needed to serve everyone else and to help others see themselves, that if I don't take care of me, there's no me left. So to find that balance and being able to communicate effectively, efficiently, share the love, be loved, receive love, and then allow ourselves to love who we are, all at the same time. That provides a grounding platform that I think a lot of other things can happen upon it. But to learn self-love sometimes does take a lifetime.
Thank you, Jeff. Getting used to this miking and unmiking is driving me a little nuts. So, Asma, what would you like to say? And then we'll go back to Conrad.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we all, as I said previously, we all get entrapped by the negative thoughts, and that happens sometimes that are not from the other side. It is somehow that happens in from your inside. There are a lot of there's always a conversation that happen with your own self, and sometimes that conversation becomes so critical and so rough that hurts you a lot. And for that, you need some space, you need some time. And the one thing that I do, and I love that, I actually connect with the people and I share their stories. And because when they share their stories, when they share their journey, that helped me a lot. And that helped me, that actually connect me with the other people, that connect me with the humans, that we all are same. And if I'm facing these things, this is mean I'm not the only one. From other people, they also face that situation, and might be they have dealt with them. Now they are in the solution phase. So there also a famous proverb that when you are not feeling okay and you need to be grateful, so you need to visit a hospital and visit the hospital and connect with the people, listen their stories, listen how they are dealing with things. And that actually, in my university, I actually try to connect with these people who are serving there, like who are doing the cleaning, who are doing the washing, who are doing. And when they share with me their stories, that actually helped me. And there was one story that actually changed my life. Like I really want to share that. I was certainly kind of a self-depressed and self-thoughts when my father was died, and I was just like, I don't want to share with the people. Na? I was in that kind of condition. I was thinking that it was so bad only with me, and I didn't talk even about that. And when someone asked me, where is your father and why he's not, and I was saying he's up in abroad and he can't come now. I never told, I never want to talk about, I never want to accept the reality. And then in my universities, it was just randomly happened. There are auntie, and he just shared her story with me, and that just opened my mind. And that just opened, I think, opened my, and that was the day when I realized the importance, when I realized that when I unlearn a lot of things, when I learn a lot of things, it was just a revolutionary there, that you are not only one there, people are facing a lot more. You are a blessed person, you need to be grateful. Whatever you have, just look at the things. She just shared with me, just look at the things what you have rather than what you don't have. And we always look at the things which we don't have. We as someone shared just before, there mostly in our life 80% people appreciate us. There are only 20 and 10% might be less than 20 people who hurt us, who say something that are very criticizing. So but we always look at the thing, we always look at the comments that are negative. And when we look at that kind of things, that certainly divert our thoughts, that divert our mind, and our mind becomes just like that. Where you look, your mind becomes just like that, your thoughts become just like that. And for that, she just divert my thoughts, she just divert my direction. And then and this one thing I just keep in mind, and I for that I keep the notes in my diary. I always written that look at the things that you have, look at the positive side rather than the things that are not in your control, rather than the things that are outside. So I think this is, there are little kind of things, little kind of reminders, little kind of notes that help us to always be remind, always to be attentive. And sometimes also, sometimes I think sometimes we don't need to be attentive. Sometimes just free yourself, just don't think anything. Sometimes you need that kind of also time where you just want to some free time. You want to don't about, even you want to don't think about what is negative, what is positive, even what is positive. Just left the all things just in the mind. Just keep calm with the mind, and after that I think it is the time when you are getting your energy, when you need that your energy, and after when you get your energy, then you can do your work, then you can also keep on your track. But after some time, we always need some breaks, some spots where we need to get back our energy, where we need to redirect the thoughts, redirect the things. And this is how I do that. I, after some time, I just take a break. I redirect the things. I look at the things back and how the things are going on, and then start again.
Thinking positive is a very important thing, and I agree with you. The question that I keep on asking, and maybe I'm not saying it clearly, and I'm going to go to Kamran on this, is how do you shift? There may be 9 compliments you get right in a row within 20 minutes, a half an hour, and someone says something negative, and we hold on to the negative. Our happiness, in my mind, comes from feeling that we're in alignment, we're doing the right thing. How do we take that one negative comment after hearing all those positive, nice things, and turn it around to the positive so we can move in that direction? Kamran?
Mute. You always ask me the tough questions, don't you, Carla? Well, there are 2 parts to this. One is, in direct answer to your question, my perspective, and it is a very limited, narrow one, but it is a perspective which works for me because I live in the same world as we all do, physically speaking, rationally speaking, and it's how we are interpreting events and what meaning we're giving to what happens. So paradigm, the word paradigm, is my favorite when it comes to dealing with situations and events. It's the rules by which we interpret an event or a reality as such. So if we have a paradigm which enables us to use our power to interpret things in a manner which is constructive, I think that really helps. So I installed a belief back in 1994. And that belief is there is no bad news. Now, when I installed that belief, I discovered that my thoughts became driven by a paradigm that took whatever was happening in a constructive way. Not trying to delude myself or deny the pain that people suffer. But whatever is happening, what's the message in it for me? What can I do about it? And I feel that it not only sensitizes you, but it at the same time makes you more constructive, positive, and you do things rather than become a passive victim. So that to me is very necessary. And it's our thoughts that then, of course, give rise to our emotions, which then lead to the behaviors we witness. And your earlier question, I mean, thoughts, and how do our thoughts create our world, or does the world we live in create our thoughts? Last night, as you know, Carla, I was with Shanaz Minallah and Rehan, and we were talking about meditation and how is it possible that we can speak on a subject like that and not have Carla mentioned in that. And the core, the essence of what we were discussing is that in order to control our mind, we ignore the most important phenomena, which is breathing. Breathing is at the heart of how we control our mind. And if we become conscious and we breathe in and breathe out, we are literally calming our mind and getting into a state that will help us deal with situations effectively, compassionately, and fairly, and judiciously, and all of those nice words. But if our mind is a lizard brain, monkey brain, and I love what Mary Alice gave as a metaphor, mind as a master is terrible, and as a servant, it's great. So I thought that thought was the central idea for me. And here I feel that breathing is what allows us to make our mind our servant. And I thought that's something we must never forget. And there is this phenomena, fear of missing out. And again, Mary Alice was referring to 60,000 thoughts a day. And I realized that those 60,000 thoughts a day, I missed out on that, I missed out on that. Fear of missing out is often a huge distraction from what Jeff talks about, the now, and self-love, and how to remain centered. I feel that one needs to be very clear on one's values, priorities, vision, and not be distracted so easily by the noise that surrounds us. Because we need to be, as Asma said, there were two things that really came out. Direction. We need to give our mind a direction which can come from a vision, which is holistic, as Mary Alice mentioned, aligned, inclusive, and giving you a perspective, a balanced view. I think that vision is something that gives you direction. People without vision perish. It's a biblical quote, which I remember. So these are some thoughts, Carla, in terms of, we are responsible. If I take responsibility as an individual over my own life, then I'm also responsible for how I behave. I'm also responsible for how I feel. I'm also responsible for how I think. And I'm also responsible for what I believe. And that is really a state of consciousness. We cannot avoid responsibility at any cost. It's very easy to blame the world, blame others for something we could not do. But mental health essentially is about taking full responsibility for any and everything that happens around you. And that's a huge gift and also a massive anchor that keeps you on the path that will take you and your loved ones and the community in a direction that is healing and lavaciously delicious. I love that, lavacious. I'm going to have a fight with my sister and I'll tell her, hold on, before I do that, the intent is lavacious. I'm not being malicious. Oh, yeah.
I love you, comrade. Thank you for such a good answer. Jeff, we are running out of time, but I'd like to know your thoughts on what we were talking about and if you have any practical techniques. Remember, we do need to be off in the next 10 minutes.
I'll be brief. I think all this is wonderful information to be shared, to be processed to be heard. As far as techniques, I firmly believe that if we think it, we can do it. I believe in quantum physics, and particularly quantum affirmations. And so if there is one thing you're looking to achieve, if you could visualize it in your headspace, write it down, say it out loud, and be witnessed in front of others, there's a much higher likelihood you can make that happen. It happens all the time, in fact. And then it's just a matter of how you go through your time here to allow it to happen. We have to let go of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. We have to let go of the things that trap us and empower ourselves in such a way that we understand that nothing is impossible, that we can do whatever it is we are meant to do. And we have to allow ourselves to dream while keeping our feet on the ground and be grounded and just do it. And so, if you want to manifest your dreams, remove the word trying from your vocabulary. Trying does not exist. It's only an excuse. It's only an excuse. You're either doing or not doing, and this is not meant to plagiarize George Lucas or anything from Star Wars, but just the reality that when we're trying, we're giving ourselves an excuse why we didn't try or why we failed. But this is not about failure. This is about being you, about allowing yourself to be free and to travel through your headspace to places which maybe you've never been to before, but is all part of you. And it starts with your dream. So if you wake up or you put yourself to bed or you're having a daydream, and visualize where you want to go, write it down, say it out loud, say it in front of a stranger, and it's yours. And the rest is that transition and that experience that you can share with others. That's what I believe in, is a practice I empower others to do. And always open to learning and hearing how people travel through their mind space and create and live through their own quantum affirmations. So I'm a big fan of empowering us to help others to help themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate that answer. It's great, because if we empower ourselves, then we can move through. And as Walt Disney said, and I'm going to be paraphrasing, if you can dream it, you can make it a reality. Asma, do you want to say something?
Thank you. I just want to say, just reconnect. Even if you want to change your thought, even if you want to change your habit, put that, give you some, at the end of that, make some target. Like, if I succeed in this thing, I would treat myself with this. I would treat, even with this practice, we can adopt this practice with ourselves, even with our sister. We usually do with myself, and I would do with my sisters. Like, if you work on this, and we succeed, we will treat ourselves with this, and we will start with the little step. And like, if you are thinking, I have negative thoughts, and we connect with that. Like, if I have these thoughts, what happened after that? After that, either I'm getting something or not, and what is the result? So when you compare the result, and you get that, and you get, there is nothing good is coming out. And when we see, and when we think good, when we think positive, even in the pandemic, there was two situations. Either when our school was just closed, and we have to start the online thinking, there was two options. That was, either there's something good could happen, either there will nothing we will achieve. I think we make a purpose, and we make a group, and we will decide, we will try to focus on the things that it's a good. Rather, no, there are a lot of bad things are happening on, but we will try to focus that there's something good would happen. And we need to practice little. We need to direct ourselves. We need to take little initiatives, and we need to accept that reality. And we just start that. We just start accepting that this is now the reality, and now we need to keep ourselves little positive. And what would be the result? If that result would happen, we will treat ourselves. And the result was amazing. And I think when you compare, and now if I get something, I just compare my now with the past. Like when in the past I think like this, the result was so bad. And when I think like this, the result was very good. So I think this was a better option. And I connect with that. And then when you connect the thing, when you connect your thoughts with the results, so this help you to achieve, and this would help also to stay more positive and to stay calm. And this is my practice, and I think this is really helpful practice. Like every day I usually I just get stuck, and then I remind myself, yeah, but when I was in 5 class I was also thinking I couldn't learn this essay. But when I try and I did some practice, and after that I just remember, then I stopped in that. So if I top in that, why can't I can do it right now? Let's try it. So I think this connection is very helpful. That help you a lot to succeed, and that help you. If you can do, you can also even the future. Sometimes we also have the problem that what happened in the future. This is problem with me. Like what would happen in the future? Yeah.
Thank you, Asma. We're running out of time. I hate to shorten you, but I cut you off. But I want to get to Mary Alice and close the show. But you're right. When you see how much you've grown and you look at that positive growth, you feel inspired to keep going instead of looking, oh, I'm not where I want to be. But looking at the growth helps you grow, continue to grow, and see how much you have gone. Mary Alice, I can't give you a long period of time, but can you give us some last thoughts?
I want to return to what Kamran said about the breath. I think that's a unifying feature. If you breathe all the way down into your belly, you return to the ground of yourself. And it's an interesting thing that if you can keep that deep breath, fear seems to vanish out of the picture at that point in time. So often I think thoughts start spinning around when you become disconnected from your body. And you become a head on legs, as somebody said to me once. You're just a head on legs. So use the breath. See if you can find the storyline, because there's usually a storyline running, and see if you can flip the script. Because often the story is going into, oh, and then it's going to go blah, 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 and go downward, and I'm going to become somebody living on the street, and there's not going to be anything left. No, so catch that storyline and go, and then what? And then ... and give yourself some audacious positive endings. That's an interesting way. And then the final thing for me is start asking a different question. You know, questions are powerful doorways. They are amazing. And most of us are asking transactional questions like, how much does it cost? Who did this before? You know, what's going to happen that I have to be worried about, instead of transformational questions. Who could I be in this moment? What is here for me to learn? How will this, sometimes when I'm in a really negative thought spin, I'm going like, okay, I'm prepared to stand this as long as it'll make a great story later on. How is this going to make a great story later on? So using questions is a powerful door opener to a different reality. And these are things people can learn. They're a skill, but they're also an art form, all of those things. Breathing, questions, stories are your human superpowers. And if you return to your human superpowers, you're going to be a better human. That would be good. Thanks.
And going back to the breath, as Mary Alice had said, I know when I remember, and I do it more often than not now, to take a few deep breaths, or to just halt, stop. Because when we take those breaths, we're also connecting with not only ourselves, but the whole of the universe. Because we all need that breath in order to live. We all need to breathe. And when we are breathing in and out, we are still alive. And that is the breath that brings us back to who we are and what we are about, and brings us to where we need to be in order to go forward. So I am a deep, very strong believer in using the breath to get us through. Although I admit there are times I forget and I want to go running to someone and say, tell me the answer. But it isn't someone else who has the answer for us. We have it within. And when we believe what we have within, then we begin to move forward. And with that, we have come to another end of MindPlore. We will be back on Tuesday with another episode and another word of wisdom for the week. And we will move forward. And with that, let's all wave goodbye and see you on Tuesday. Bye, everyone.